When we look at Maximo for general maintenance programs, they seem to be fairly simple, and Maximo seems like it's a whole lot for something that seems simple. So let's break that down for just a minute and understand why, even for general maintenance, Maximo is a really good piece of software to put in place. So, right off the top, one thing that software tends to deliver for us is insight and predictability. And if you're in one of those organizations where you see a lot of unpredicted downtime, a lot of emergency failures, getting an organized program centered around a piece of software is a huge step forward there. And a side effect of that, of course, is going to be that you're also going to start to bring costs down. It's going to cost less to maintain those assets. When we look at this overall, something that's really interesting about this is how things have grown and why there's such resistance to implement software for general maintenance. And I think that the root of it is really that most of the discrete tasks that are performed in general maintenance are not overly complex. They are fairly straightforward, and that doesn't mean there's not highly complex stuff in maintenance. There's calibration and there's all kinds of stuff, but the majority of the tasks. And what that means is that someone who might be a handyman or just, generally good at working on things can easily come into the industry as an apprentice and then work under a mentor who teaches them, and as they grow over the years and understand the more complex machinery and more complex types of maintenance. And somehow that ability, because it's a low barrier to entry, makes us feel like, well, we don't need software to manage this. I know what I'm doing. I know my equipment. I know where my parts are. I know my tools. I don't need software. And the challenge with that is, in this case, that's a bottom-up approach rather than the top-down, where in this case a top-down approach is going to be looking at that overall efficiency. It's going to be looking at meeting regulatory requirements. It's going to look at that predictability. It's going to look at what's my cost? How safe are we? All of these things are going to be encompassed in a top-down approach, and that's not what happens when we grow up from the bottom, or rarely does it happen. And typically in organizations that don't have a good implementation of a package like Maximo behind them, we see one of two scenarios. The rarer, but it does happen, is we see a highly proactive maintenance organization, and they don't have a lot of failures, and things are neat, they're clean, they're organized. And the side effect is it costs them about 3 times as much to do that without software as it would to do it with software, because they're relying heavily on inspection rounds. They're relying heavily on over-maintaining things, and that just costs more. And then the other, more common, is organizations who are struggling to keep up, where they're very reactive. They're constantly trying to get ahead of this landslide of work coming at them, and it's nearly impossible. There's all kinds of overtime, emergency parts orders, and those organizations are spending about 5x of what they would need to spend if they were very well run in something like Maximo. And so, when we look at a proper Maximo implementation, and proper is very important here, okay? And that means it was implemented to make you better, not implemented to, repeat mistakes of the past, or implemented to attempt to capture a bunch of data that you don't really use. Proper implementation. What we are going to see is we're going to start to see efficiency gains, and we'll see the unnecessary overtime come down. We will see fewer spare parts on hand and fewer emergency orders on those spares. We're going to see the downtime of our critical equipment reduce, which means we're going to see more uptime available in that equipment, and it's going to become more predictable. And with greater predictability, lots of things start to change. And you know, a very interesting side effect of all of this, well-run organizations tend to be safer, and that's just statistically true. So our people are going to be safer. We're going to have less accidents in the workplace because we are run better. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Comments below. Look forward to talking to you.